I can't get over the pride I felt. I mean, you saw me bawling my eyes out. You nearly gave me a slap at one point, like, get a grip, woman.
I got like closure on my career. It was like it came full circle. They found me when I was 9 years old in Catford in South East London, and I never really looked back. We've got a lot of injuries in the team, and our players are 100% fit, and that's a little bit of my concern to a certain degree, going into a major tournament with players that haven't really had many minutes. I hope Lauren James will be fit and healthy, because I think she is the difference between, she's that type of player, the X Factor player, maverick player that I think, world-class player, that if we have her fit and ready, I think we have a chance of winning.
Can we talk about Aggie Beever-Jones and how great she's been this season, but also that hat-trick in our Wembley debut? She, I mean, has got to be considered now for a starting position.
I just feel like you have to go over Alessia Russo.
We've got all these businesses that haven't perhaps had the oxygen that we think they deserve. So that's just the brands. And then you've got things from watch parties to classes to live podcasts.
Men, you're so welcome to this space. Yes. You want it to be for everyone who are looking to prioritise women's sports, right?
It's not just about the athlete, it's about the women's sports fan.
Hello, how are you? And welcome back to The Kickback with me, Shebahn Aherne, the evil twin sister on international duty, hanging together by a thread. So joining me is quadruple winner, work wifey Lianne Sanderson, who couldn't get her arse out of her house today and come and see me at the studio. But we'll mention that in a minute. Plus, the Telegraph's tennis correspondent joins us to discuss criticism around the scheduling of women's singles matches during the French Open. And founders of SOOO London, a new home for women's sport this summer, joins us to reveal exactly what you can find in their pop-up in Regents Street ahead of the launch this week. Cannot wait for that and much, much more on the way here on The Kickback. Don't forget to like, subscribe, get in the comments. We've got lots to dissect, lots to get into. And let's bring back in Lianne Sanderson. Where the hell you been? You still hanging about with the Arsenal parade?
Well, I'm glad I got to see you last week. That was a lovely surprise. And little Brooks, Reva and Jamie as well. It was lovely, wasn't it? And, you know, I think, like, I just feel like I've been on a high, Shebahn, ever since, really. Like, I had 3 days off, probably my first day off in probably about a year. And now I'm ready to be back on it. And that's why I'm glad I'm back with you. But, like, yeah, it was just a great weekend. And the fact we got to see each other was that icing on the cake.
Yeah, we actually did get one of those experiences where we then weren't working and we were together and the families are there and people who you've known for 100 years were there. And I actually had an element of real pride for you, because I've been watching Arsenal, I think, since they won the quad in 2017. You've been part of that squad, and then becoming closer and closer to the club, watching its rise, but not being able to do that again. I can't get over the pride I felt. I mean, you saw me bawling my eyes out. You nearly gave me a slap at one point, like, get a grip, woman.
I mean, I was crying after the game. I had to get Tony to, like, speak, because I didn't realise I was going to feel so overwhelmed with emotion. But do you know what, Shebahn? I said, like, I had this real moment of reflection where I actually felt like, as crazy as it sounds, I got, like, closure on my career. It was like it came full circle. Like, Vic Akers was in the crowd. You know, Claire Wheatley, that found me as well, was there. Like, everybody that was at the club when I was younger was there at the game. It was amazing. And, like, when the Lionesses won the Euros, I had a lot of pride, right? It was, like, a great feeling. But, like, I didn't feel that connection because of how, like, the FA had made me feel, how England had made me feel. I feel better about it now, because since they've tried to kind of, you know, reconcile on those types of things. But I felt pride, but I just didn't feel that, like, I was part of it. Whereas to feel part of it, like, we got invited to the training ground during the week, and I always get invited back to the club all the time, whether it be the men's side, the women's side, you know, to host events or to just be part of it, really. And it just makes me feel really, really good. And I feel like my career only ended based upon, like, not because I wasn't good enough. It was because I just got sick of not being treated very nicely. And to feel that love and connection with Arsenal just makes me feel, like, really nice, you know, because they found me when I was 9 years old in Catford in South East London, and I never really looked back.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for you, mate. You deserve those moments, you know, as somebody who has retired but still remained as part of a club. You know, you deserve that moment for pushing the club and everything that you say and do on air for women's football, for men's football. Actually, I was listening to you on the radio the other day when people ask, am I not a Man United fan? It's like, you played for Arsenal for all those years. Arsenal was your home. Like, you are allowed to have the affiliation and the love for something that was good to you while supporting a men's team or another team at the same time. It's okay.
Sometimes people, I don't know, I'm pretty outward about my Manchester United love, obviously. If people say to me, oh, you know, if the women's team, Man United women had a team when you were playing, would you have still wanted to win? I'm like, what are these people talking about? Like, they not think that, like, the male players grow up supporting, like, you know, our very own Darren Bent played for Tottenham and he supports Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it happens, but it doesn't mean when you're playing against them that you want to, like, you don't want to win. I mean, come on. Like, but yeah, I just think sometimes, you know, people are just going to always have something to say, but I don't care. The real Arsenal fans love me and I have a good connection with them.
Listen, football won at the end of the day, and we were buzzing, weren't we, for Arsenal and for all the staff and everybody involved and the fans. There was about 10,000 people at that parade, and we've already spoken about it on the show, but having you with us to just reflect that full circle moment for your career is lovely as well. I mean, I've still to pull you up about the fact that you tried to have a way with my husband.
Shut up, you idiot. I love Jamie. He's top guy. And I was actually with Jamie after the game at the after party because you didn't
3 in
come
the
to
morning, I got
Lisbon.
messages from these two.
You didn't come to Lisbon. We missed you. I told you I missed you. I voice noted you the day before as well. And yeah, it was just lovely to spend time with people after the game. And like I said many times, I've never missed a flight in my life, and I actually missed my flight back from Lisbon. I was playing in a charity game that day, so I landed, played for Great Ormond Street Hospital with Hazard. It was brilliant. But you know, when you feel like I'm running on empty here, like I don't really drink anymore because I don't like feeling hungover. So like, and with work and stuff, you just can't do that. I just can't anymore. But it was well worth it. The party was brilliant to see everyone after the game. And sometimes, you know, I think a lot of people felt like, should people go to the party? Whereas like I was getting loads of messages being like, come to the party, Lianne. You know, like I want the girls to have their moment. We won it in 2007, but like, you know, that's their moment. And to be fair to them, like fair play to them, they partied for about 3 days and then I couldn't believe it. Like a lot of them having to go back to national team camp like straight away. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like give them a break for God's sake. Like, and I loved all the welcomes back they got, Shebahn. I thought they were brilliant.
Sweet.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought the Lionesses one, and I've tweeted about it, was not really up to standards. Do you know what I mean? And people were saying, well, when Kira Walsh and Lucy Bronze won it with Barcelona, they didn't welcome them in. I said, well, they should have. You know, like I think it's embarrassing where you look at Australia, you look at the way they were welcomed back to camp, America, Emily Fox, Lindsay Heaps was one of the first people to hug her. And she lost in the semi against Arsenal. Like, that's why I love playing in America. So, yeah, I don't know. I was quite disappointed with how our girls got welcome at St. George's Park. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, I'm sure there was a lot of people in that camp that felt a little bit, if I was playing for another team, I'd be fuming if Arsenal would have won.
Do you know, I saw your tweet and I thought, fair point, because obviously Rush being out at Republic of Ireland, Katie McCabe going back into the camp, the captain of Ireland, and you know, when I saw that, her coming through, getting out the car, you know, I thought, oh, that's great that everybody's out there. Russia was handling a bottle of water and stuff like that, and the, you know, the scenes that she caused, you know, the mood, the vibe that she was in. Was nice to see our club welcome her back, and she got player of the match a few days later, you know, in the international game.
How she did that, I don't know, because these players, like I said, how they managed to get to camp is one thing, let alone playing in games and getting player of the match. But yeah, I mean, they obviously have a responsibility to play for their national team, but I think the scheduling of the games and timing and everything, like that needs to change anyway. I'm not a big one of those people that's like, oh, there's too many games there necessarily, but it's like, let them have a break. Do you know what I mean? Like they play enough games, they've given everything, and you know, you see players like Millie Bright now having to take that kind of mental and psychological break from the Lionesses camp at the moment, and fair play to her because it is a lot.
On that subject, you know, Beth Mead, we'd seen her at the parade party. Her voice was gone. You know, she was croaky, McChokey, and she rocks straight back up into the England camp. She scores against Portugal, and it was a 6-0 demolition act, I think is the words that we'll use there, Lianne. They looked very good.
They did. And, you know, I think when you look at the Portugal game previously, couldn't get the result, then they beat Spain, then they draw with the USA. I don't know, like sometimes I think with the Lionesses, we got so used to them, like, you know, winning teams, annihilating teams. But it's all that matters is winning, really, and they got to a World Cup final. I don't think they played that well in Australia and New Zealand, but they got the job done. Maybe against Nigeria, you know, under a different manager, we might have had a different result in that game because I thought Nigeria deserved to win that. But at the same time, like, one of my biggest like conundrums at the moment is not necessarily who's going to start, it's the squad. Because someone like, Lauren James is still, I know Serena's spoken about her a lot, saying, she's announcing her team on Thursday this week. And it's like we've got a number of players. Lauren Hemp looks like she hasn't skipped a beat, to be honest. But at the same time, we've got a lot of injuries in the team, and our players 100% fit. And that's a little bit of my concern to a certain degree, going into a major tournament with players that haven't really had many minutes within a game. Georgia Stanway, Lauren James, those types of players, they haven't really played a lot of football. So, I hope they're going to be okay. I hope Lauren James will be fit and healthy, because I think she is the difference between, she's that type of player, the X Factor player, maverick player that I think, world-class player, that if we have her fit and ready, I think we have a chance of winning. But I think it's going to be really difficult if she's not available.
Yeah, no, I am completely inclined to agree with you there. Lauren James offers something completely different to any other England player. She has so much ability, almost a bit of swag in there, effortless, the way she glides across the pitch. That's the thing, though, if there's those injuries concerns and that fitness concern, does Sarina Wiegman just automatically give her the place anyway and hope that that comes good? Or do you trust in a player who is currently fit and available? But that's the thing, Lauren comes with that then major tournament experience.
Yeah, I mean, Serena's spoken about the fact they've been in communication with Chelsea, doctors and staff, and they've kind of all been a team trying to get her healthy. I personally think she will get named in the squad, and then they'll have to wait and see. It's probably difficult moments for certain players. What I love about Sarina Wiegman, I've heard that she just is pretty blunt, open and honest communication. Dutch culture's quite like that anyway, but I welcome that. With regards to, there's probably some players in that camp that are only going to get selected based upon, certain players being unavailable, injuries. I mean, even Alex Greenwood being back, the timing of that is fantastic. Yeah. And it'll be interesting because Millie Bright, I've no doubt, will probably start in the games. But if she's not ready to start, then, Esme Morgan's got the start against Portugal. And coming up against this Spanish team, the timing of this game, I personally wouldn't want to be going up against like Bob Matty after what Arsenal just did last week, because we know when they lose these games like they did against Man City, they have that kind of that look in their eye like this won't happen again. So, it's going to be a difficult game for the Lionesses. Or
you'll see it the other way and go, okay, they're a little bit wounded. Not all of Spain, obviously, but a majority of those players, a decent amount, will play for Barcelona or in that squad. So maybe it is the time, whilst they're feeling a little bit down, having been beat by an English side like Arsenal. And also, Lianne, a couple of us had discussed this, like where Arsenal might have won the Champions League was based on the major experience. Beth Mead, Alessia Russo and Leah Williamson, Lotte Wubben-Moy, it was great to see her get subbed on and maintain and keep the game together and make sure she fulfilled that position. But Leah Williamson went up to a level that I don't think anybody has really seen of her this season, Lianne.
No, not since the injury. I don't think we've seen Leah play in that way. But I think because she bleeds Arsenal through and through, been at the club since she was younger, was our mascot. I said to her after the game,
Such a sweet picture.
She hates that picture as well, with a little bob haircut. But I think in general, it was a defensive masterclass from Arsenal. Renee Slegers, what a job she has done. Unbelievable. But I thought Steph Catley, Caitlin Ford, Emily Fox was unbelievable. I mean, they defended with their lives. And there were some similarities between our 2007 team. You have to have a little bit of luck sometimes. In the first 2 minutes of that game, I turned up on Matty, cut it inside, and I was waiting for the net to ripple. And then, they pulled off a worldie of a tackle. Leah Williamson, Steph Catley was throwing themselves at it. And Daphne Van Domselaar was certainly busy in that game, similar to Emma Byrne when we won it. So you have to have a little bit of luck sometimes. And it was Tony Duggan that was going to me, they could nick this. And I'm going, I can't see it. We were getting out-possessed. Alessia Russo was getting no service at all. And what I loved what Renee did in that game compared to Jonas Eidevall, I feel like what was happening is Stina Blackstenius would come on, Alessia Russo would go off. No, Renee left Alessia on, went out, all guns blazing, tactically made those substitutions. And, you couldn't ask for a better two substitutions. Beth Mead gets that incredible assist. Stina Blackstenius gets the goal.
Yeah, no, it was wicked. Stina Blackstenius. She scores the goals. She scores the goals.
You should have got on the mic at the parade.
I know. They'd be like, get her out of here. She's the devil. Listen, on the subject of the Arsenal Sorry, we need to park it for a minute, like, even though we'll probably never finish talking about that. Can we talk about Aggie Beever-Jones and how great she's been this season, but also that hat-trick in her Wembley debut? She, I mean, has got to be considered now for a starting position in Serena's team for the Euros.
Yeah, but instead of who? Do you know what I mean? She's been brilliant last year. She's been brilliant this year. I like her. She's a nice girl. Like, you can tell she's so humble.
Yeah.
But I think she's winning awards left, right and centre as well, you know. But at the same time, I just feel like, look at the last Euros, right? Alessia Russo was coming off the bench for Ellen White. That kind of worked. Ella Toone was coming off the bench as well. I just feel like you have to go over Alessia Russo. But at the same time, Aggie Beever-Jones, she could play out wide. I mean, it's up to Serena. She's not, I can't see Serena playing Aggie Beever-Jones out wide. I just can't see it. But I think, you know, Alessia Russo starts in the games and then brings Aggie. It's a good, like, you know, the depth in that position. We spoke about it for a long time. And then obviously an outside chance, Michelle Agyemang as well, could be that kind of like, you know, wild card decision from Serena Wiegmann to bring her into the squad, and kind of that player that, you know, is still pretty raw, which I love. I think she's got quite great quality. Look at that goal she scored. And I feel like she could be that type of player that could get selected and could go on to do something in the tournament. But at the same time, it's tournament football. You know, Serena will pick a squad based upon what everyone's going to play. You're going to play.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take Agyemang. I just think, you know, get her into major tournament experience now, because come 2027, there's a very strong possibility she'll be the number 9 for England. You know, if she has a good season next season, you know, that could be the start of what the future looks like for her as an England player. We saw what happened in her debut. I mean, to come on, to have that bottle and that belief, you know, and score a beautiful goal like that, keep her. Make sure she soaks it up, make sure she gets on top of the experience, learns from those around her, like Hannah Hampton had to do with Mary Earps. Now Mary Earps isn't there, blah, blah, blah. You know, make sure she's in there now.
Yeah, I mean, I like her, and I think it was a nice touch at the final. She was there as well. Obviously, she's at Arsenal, goes out on loan to Brighton, and I do think she has that quality that, you're right, Shebahn, I think in years to come could be that player. And like I said, in tournament football, you know, not everyone's going to play, so you have to pick a squad that's not, players are okay with not playing, but coaches do bear that in mind. You know, you don't want 23 players that all want to be on the pitch. Yeah, we all want to play, but I've had teammates that played a role that I personally couldn't. You know, whether it be a third choice keeper, whether it be somebody that just knows they're not going to get on. It's really difficult to do that at a major tournament.
Yeah. Well, ahead of the game against Spain tonight, here's what Serena Wiegmann had to say on the squad available to her.
I think we want to perform. We always want to perform. And in February, we had a tie against Portugal. We had a win against Spain. So that was different. And in April, we had a good performance against Belgium, and then not a good performance, the second one. I think tomorrow Spain is a totally different game than we have had on Friday, and different opponents. I think we started really well against Portugal, and it really helped that we scored 2 goals within 5 minutes, and we just played very well. Of course, we are aware that Spain is different, is the highest level we can imagine, so we have to have a good start again, And yes, of course, we're going out there to play the best performance and to take another step in our style of play, in our development, and have a good game plan.
Lianne, how much of a miss do you think Millie Bright would be in a game like this against the world champions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen in games, there was times where I questioned if I thought Leah and Millie could play together based upon the lack of pace. Leah didn't look like she was her normal self coming back from that injury. Now, Leah looks like she's ready for a major tournament. That game against, you know, Barcelona, unbelievable. That's one of the best games I've seen Leah Williamson play.
Yeah.
But my only kind of apprehension is the pace in the back line. But I think Alex Greenwood being fit and healthy as well and available, you could see her go alongside Leah. It just depends if Millie's available and ready to go. I imagine she'll be selected, obviously.
Yeah.
But, you know, what type of frame of mind is she in? How is she feeling? And I'm sure Serena Wiegmann, she will start her in the games. But I think in a game like Spain, you need that experience. Lucy Bronze alluded to it, you know, not because Millie's the oldest player on the team, but the experience you have. And that's why I think, like, going into tournaments without players like Mary Earps today is going to be massive, massive. It's like having players that have played at World Cups and Euros. You can't recreate that in friendlies. You can't recreate that in camps. You can't recreate that in the Nations League. When you're playing at a major tournament for your country, the pressure is there. you're away from your family, you got to find things to do in your downtime, you're often in a hotel. You know, when I was away with England at times, thankfully, you know, Serena Wiegmann gives the players a lot more freedom, but I often felt like I just was in prison or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, not that I've ever been in prison, but like, it just felt like you were in like,
we can make that
up.
happen.
No, but you know, you just like, you're locked up, confined to like your room, and like you just weren't allowed to do anything. Whereas thankfully now I find that Serena Wiegmann and other coaches, Phil Neville was a bit more flexible, even letting players wear their own clothes. It sounds crazy, but like we used to have to walk around with our like polo shirts buttoned up, and like, you know, we weren't allowed to wear the like Nike outfits or Umbro at the time. Like, and I think those types of things make a difference when you're at a tournament, as crazy as it sounds, like just having that freedom. And I was the type of person that liked to go off on my own. I loved people, but I needed my own time. I need to go to a spa. I need to just have my downtime and not be around everybody, because I love my teammates, but it's hard.
Yeah.
When you're away for like 6-7 weeks in that intense environment, it's really hard. And you can have a tendency to kind of like, you start playing, you know, mind games with yourself if you're not starting, and you question, am I good enough? And it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from a number of players, you know, who find the international experience so intense. Yes, you want to play for your country. Yes, you want to be part of that squad and part of that camp. But it is a long time. You know, it's a long time, especially if you're not favoured or you're not playing or you're not flavour of the month, you know, to make sure that you feel part of it, you know, as well. And, you know, even sometimes I think there's still situations where you could be sharing rooms with somebody and it's like, oh, you know, even that, you don't really get your own freedom. And certainly something you see from even like the Euros last year, being out there covering the men's tournament in Germany. What you saw from the Scotland camp was that bit more freedom. They had darts competitions, you know, they're making sure that they're incorporating all that into the camp, knowing that the Lionesses and the women's international teams are giving those players a little bit more of that is good to know, because I sometimes think it can get a little bit robotic, and I think that is a prime example with Beth, Russo, Leah Williamson, Lotta going into that international camp and not getting the heroes welcome that they deserved, like all of the other players who'd won the Champions League had got. It's almost like there's maybe an element of like, we're so serious, we're so professional, it can come across a little bit stiff. Is that fair, or is that out of line?
Potentially, but I think that's how it's always been in England. You know, I don't think it's down to individuals not wanting to do a ceremony, but I think it's an oversight. Again, I don't think they'd even thought about it, but I think in our culture, it's quite different, isn't it? Like the Irish, the Americans, they're quite like, that's why I love it, because it's like fun, outgoing, where I just think it's not in our culture. I can't imagine, you know, the Lionesses standing there with flags, with like, you know, England flags, waving the girls back in. It would have been a lovely touch, but I couldn't have seen it. But just to pick up on something you said, Shebahn, as well, something I found really hard at major tournaments, and thankfully it's changed now, is when I wasn't playing, the girls would get a day off the next day and I'd have to go training. And we'd do a blowout with like the rest of the players, and we'd see all the starting 11, say, in the lobby with their friends and families, and we'd have to go out to training. And I used to fight in Canada. I found that so hard, because when you're not playing anyway, you start to doubt yourself. But then you see people with their friends and families getting extra time, and you just feel like
you're being punished in a way, or not.
Yeah, you're happy for them.
Yeah.
But now I think that's changed, where they do it at the stadium, at the ground, after the game. So like you're all on the same like page. So then when you get a day off, you can go and see your families together. But there's all these small things that like make a big difference. And when people ask me if I miss playing, I don't at all, because I love what I do now. But it's like these small things that I think would have made a massive difference to our, like, at Arsenal we were successful, but I think at England we probably would have been even more successful if we got what the players got now.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point, and things are always changing, and social media gives a decent insight, I think, to the Lionesses, particularly when you see them getting their time and they're doing their TikTok dances. And before I would have gone, oh, and now I'm like, you know, it's good fun. They're making fun for themselves.
Let them have a bit of fun.
Lighten up, everyone, you know. Let's just lighten up a little.
It doesn't mean they're not focused. You know, that's what I used to think. They're like, oh, you're not focused if you, if you're doing that. It's like, no, like, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah. God, imagine being on a night out with those people. Ugh. You know, the people who are like, oh, God forbid I had a good time.
Not us.
I know. We'll drink from the shoe. Okay, then go on. I mean, 29 days until the Women's Euros. Is there any shock omissions that you might think will happen from Serena's squad? I mean, we haven't touched on Mary Earps yet. I haven't heard your complete say on that. How do you think that will affect things?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was gutted when Mary announced her international retirement, because, you know, I think Mary's had it, like, she hasn't always had this plain sailing England career. I was actually there when Mary had her first cap in China, and it was coincidentally when everything kind of went down on that camp. So, but at the same time, I think Mary's gone on to have a fantastic career, and I think she'll be a loss to this tournament. Like I said, major tournaments. Do I think there'll be any shock omissions from the team? Not particularly. I mean, maybe Fran Kirby, potentially. Like, but it depends on what Serena's going for. I love Fran. I think she's top girl. She's a good friend of mine. But it's like, what is Serena trying to do with the team? Does she want Fran to come with the camp and just be there because she's had that tournament experience? You know, what is the, you know, I know she came on against Portugal, but I'm just looking at those types of players thinking, you know, Jess Park, Grace Clinton, those players haven't been at major tournaments with England, and you need players like Fran Kirby. So those types of players, maybe Fran could be the one that maybe, you know, if there is a shock, would that be it? Yeah, but I think other than that, the team more or less picks itself, but there's a lot of women Moy get picked. You know, is she that player that would get picked? Personally, I think so, because I think she knows how to play that role. I think she plays it at Arsenal, she plays it at England, and I think, you know, that doesn't mean she doesn't want to play. Of course she wants to play, we all want to play, but you have to know how to be that person that can support your teammates at a major tournament. So I think Anna Morehouse and Kiara Keaton have had a right touch to a certain degree, because obviously it'd have been one of those players that would have been like left out of the team.
Yeah.
I think Anna Morehouse has been brilliant for the Orlando Pride, but I think one of those players would have missed out. So when one door closes, another one opens for someone else. I think Lauren James will be selected, and then there'll probably be somebody on standby that will be told, if Lauren's not ready to go, you'll be the player. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any players at this moment in time you think, oh, are they going to get picked? Are they not? I don't think Kira Walsh has had her best season at Chelsea since she signed, but I love Kira Walsh. I think she's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, and I can't see another world where she is not. And Serena's starting 11 doing the job that she's always done, really, for the Lionesses, because she's undoubtedly, like you say, the greatest, sometimes underrated or under-respected, maybe, for the country. Listen, thank you very much. I'm going to let you go and text my husband or whatever it is you're going to do in your spare time.
Thanks, Shebahn. Thanks for having me again.
Love
Lovely to see you.
See you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Lianne Sanderson there, former quadruple winner with Arsenal, still enjoying the celebrations of the Champions League win, and rightly so. Now, moving on, the French Open tournament director, Amélie Mauresmo, has rejected accusations that not scheduling women's matches in the tournament's night session implies female players are not worthy of the slot, despite scheduling none of them in the primetime slot since 2023. Several players have now spoken out about the issue, including Jessica Beluga, Coco Gauff and Ons Jabeur more recently. We're now joined by tennis correspondent for the Telegraph, Simon Briggs is with us. Hello, Simon. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on with us to discuss this. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. Listen, Simon, this is an interesting one. Ons Jabeur being the recent player who we heard from, and really unhappy and stating the facts that we've not seen a prime time French Open women's, tournament getting that schedule since 2023. Is there another reason other than sexism that's going around, Simon?
Well, there is. There's a very practical reason, which is they've only got one match in the night session. So the problem is, if you have a 3-set match that turns into a blowout, you can have a 45-minute entertainment for people who've played big bucks to be there. Now, the whole setup of the French Open is unique. There's no other tournament that has a one-match night session. This is the practical issue that they're running into. But I would say that philosophically, Mauresmo is unable perhaps to see the optics problem that they've created with this setup. And when she was asked about this in her press conference earlier in the tournament, she just seemed baffled by the issues people have with it. And that seems to me to be a little surprising. It's been going on for years, this debate, and it clearly is quite a problem for the way the tournament is projecting women's tennis.
Yeah, it almost gives a certain look. It might not mean what it's implied, but it does look a certain way, that's for sure. Since the primetime slot was introduced for Amazon Prime in 2021, only 4 of the 51 matches have featured women.
There are fewer as we go on. I mean, it's if they tried it out a few times. They've never had a real catastrophe of the kind I'm talking about, where You had, a 6-love, 6-1. That never quite happened, but I think they just became increasingly concerned about that. So what we're seeing now is that they seem to be settling into this pattern, that they're not even challenging it, and it's up to reporters to constantly bring it up. And then Amelie says, well, we had these same questions last year. It's like, well, yes, you're going to continue to face the same questions year on year as we go on, unless you address the issue. We should also say that it's not just a night session. It's also the fact that they put the women on before the men every day, starting at 11 a.m. And it's a much quieter slot. It's a much lower profile slot than the men would normally get. They start, you can't say exactly when, because tennis matches have no defined duration, but they start maybe 3 o'clock when the crowd is kind of in the middle of the afternoon and really getting into it. So my colleagues on the tennis podcast refer to that 11 a.m. Opening as the vibeless death slot on Chatrier, which isn't really a great projection for the women again.
Yeah, I mean, it takes away from their achievements and how much these as individual athletes are dominating and kind of deserve that prime time slot. Is there anything else that, when you're in these situations, in these press conferences, does any of it ever give that it feels like it's a sexism thing, or is it just an overall situation?
It's like the French Tennis Federation don't want to accept that. I think there is perhaps a cultural issue in France that they probably aren't as committed to the whole concept of sporting equality as we might see in English-speaking nations. Certainly the Americans have really led that way with all the legislation that requires educational establishments to have equal provision of sport. In the UK, we're pretty switched on as to giving both genders as much of an equal chance as we can. I think in France, perhaps culturally they're not quite as kind of keen on the whole idea of equality. And it has to be said that the crowds do seem to prefer men's tennis. This is another issue that they have. It's not as if the crowds are complaining about this. The crowds seem to be pretty happy with the men in the best slots, and the organisers seem to be happy. And one thing we see in tennis is that there is no overarching authority that can step in these cases. It's a real Wild West of a sport where every organisation has its own leadership and there's no overall oversight. We saw this when the French Open unilaterally decided to play in the autumn of 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Didn't even tell any of the tours, didn't tell the players, didn't tell the other slams. They said, right, well, we're going in October. That's what we're doing. You'd like it or lump it. So there's nobody who can step in and say, you need to do something about this. The French Tennis Federation are entirely autonomous and can continue to do it for as long as they want.
Right, very, very interesting. And do you think even with maybe the backlash and the amount of players now we have heard speaking out on this subject, they will feel the pressure to make change, or do they stick to what it is they do?
I don't see it happening. I mean, it's not new. Tournaments are generally quite concerned about what the players think. But if we're beginning from a point of view where the French Tennis Federation instinctively feel that their male tennis product is a more valuable one, then they will probably just sail on and kind of shrug off the complaints. Where is going to be the pressure that could knock them out of this loop? I just don't quite see where it's coming from. We can continue to hassle them. We can continue to make Amélie Mauresmo in her press conferences, but I'm not sure it's actually going to make a difference on the ground.
Right. It's almost a bit of a shame, because it is the sport where for quite often, for so many years, it looked like it was very equal, especially on the outside. So, I mean, for that, I would say it's a shame. I'm not a tennis purist, but for somebody like yourself, do you feel that it will then put a dent in the growth of women's tennis in the future?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue that it's a good thing for women's tennis. We're talking about a huge profile event. And in tennis, there are 4 slams. They have a massively greater profile than the week-to-week events that are staged by the 2 men's and women's tours. These are the shop windows of the sport. Now, the other slams do a better job of achieving equality. Maybe not 100% equality, but they get much closer to it. The French Open is clearly lagging, and yes, it is dragging the sport behind the times, for sure.
Simon Briggs, journalist, reporter from the Telegraph on the tennis. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again very soon. So, women's sport has a new home this summer. Style of our own, or SOOO London, is an immersive pop-up store dedicated to women's sport and will be opening its doors on Regents Street this week. So here to tell us all about it, Jamie Bavona and Laura Youngson. Thank you so much for coming in, because I couldn't be more excited about the idea of this, about the events that are going to happen here this summer, especially in a Women's Euros summer. We've met you before from Ida. We've met over drinks one time.
Where all the good stuff happens.
How did this baby get made?
Well, kind of over drinks, I guess. We were at the World Cup in 2023 in Australia, and we were talking about this competition that Westminster were holding. To you could apply to get a store in this space around Oxford and Regent Street, and we said, oh, wouldn't it be incredible if we put in an application? And kind of fast forward 2 years later, we won a place on the competition to get a rent-free store on Regent Street, and we said, hey, can we put a football pitch in? And they went for it, and so we've got this incredible space, for the summer.
Brilliant. I mean, there's lots of different things that are going to be happening, but as I mentioned there, with it being a Euros summer, this is the place to be, right?
I mean, this was the whole thing, is that, Westminster, it's over a span of 3 years where they can place businesses. And we were like, we don't have 3 years. Like, the summer of women's sport is now. We've got the Rugby World Cup, right? We've got the Euros and everything in between. And so, honestly, you put a bunch of formidable women together, and like, there's nothing that will stop us. So we just started pounding the pavement. We're like, that one looks nice. What about that one? Will that fit the football pitch? And yeah, we landed on, I would arguably, the prime location in London, like the best. So yeah, we're really, really excited.
So when the doors open, obviously there's going to be the launch party for SOOO. Everybody's going to learn more about what's going to happen. But what's the vibe? What's the energy kind of day to day? What kind of other things can you take in aside from watching games in women's sport?
So we really wanted to make a home for all of these. So the businesses in women's sport. So we've got 27 SMEs in there, small, medium businesses. We've got everything from Foudies doing the shirt pressing with all the women's sport lettering. We've got golf, we've got lifting. We've got all these businesses that haven't perhaps had the oxygen that we think they deserve. So that's just the brands. And then you've got things from watch parties to classes to live podcasts. Honestly, we came with this concept of like, create the space you wish existed, and the community has come in and gone, great, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and it's just building from there. And it really is difficult, I mean, especially with the Champions League final just gone, to find bars that will champion watching women's sport and, you know, have it a place where men can go and go, I don't mind watching this game as well. And that's the crucial word here as well. Men, you're so welcome to this space. Yes. You want it to be for everyone who are looking to prioritise women's sports, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about the athlete, it's about the women's sports fan. And as we know, that is actually now skewing a little bit more towards men. And so this space is really inclusive for everyone. And everything that we're doing is really intentional and geared towards that audience.
How important is that, Laura, to have everybody on board for pushing the sport?
Oh, it's so important. And I mean, we see it in our research, but dads have a disproportionate impact on whether your daughter plays sport or not. And so we want it to be this welcoming space where it's a special experience for girls to come in and go, hey, I can find the gear that I want. But the dad's also really excited to come because there's a football pitch as well, there's great coffee, it's going to smell nice. It's, all of these things that actually make it this special experience when you're buying your kit and your gear and your equipment, but then also supporting the team. So for example, where are you going to go and get your Arsenal shirt? Where are you going to go and get your England shirt for this summer? And that really is that inclusive space to be that focal point for the community.
I mean, it's going to be good fun as well. And I'm seeing all the links on social media. I'm seeing the posts. I'm seeing the players even get involved in the kind of interaction as well. Everybody's kind of up for this.
I was going to say, it was really interesting. We did some shoots with some of the players, some of the Red Roses. And when we were talking to them about this concept, it was like their eyes just lit up and they were like, oh my gosh, especially rugby gear for women, right? Like, we want something stylish, we want something that fits. Same with cricket. And those are the brands that are going to be in the space that have identified that gap in the market. So, we've always said, like, we've had this idea and we think it's amazing. It's another thing, I think, when the players and even the pro players are like, holy, can I say shit? Holy shit, right? Like, where has this been? Why haven't we had this? This makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun.
And that is what we were discussing earlier on in the green room, what happened with the Portland Thorns bar. I mean,
it's this incredible focal point, and I think what we've seen, we knew it would be something this summer.
Yeah.
What we've seen is kind of beyond even our imagination, and that for me is the whole point of it. And what springboards out of this whole summer, like what can we create beyond it? Because it's bringing everyone together, and then we go, great, and now can we get it invested, or can you get this business elsewhere and more known, or could you get, bringing it all mainstream?
Are a lot of people getting in touch as well, wanting to have a part of this? Yeah.
It's been overwhelming, which is a really good problem to have, right? But I think what's really, like Laura said, it's a springboard. And some of these brands that will be featured in the store haven't even launched yet. So they're going to use the store as a place for them to bring their brands to the masses, which is really, really exciting.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's what we know as well about the women's sports fans, not just football, even though football are a particular push on social media, especially. They're like an army, aren't they? They will make sure the word gets out there, and that will make sure other people know, come along, be part of this experience. And there's like a real home. It's like a home this summer for women's sport.
It's our house. It's our house in the centre of London for this incredible summer of women's sport. It's going to be insane.
And what was your saying? You were saying it's a crash for women's sport. I say playground, Laura says crash.
Yeah.
But we can invent, we can create, we can do whatever we want within reason within this store.
But you dream it, and then people bring it to life, which is incredible.
Well, you guys having that conversation at the World Cup back in Australia, to it now being here now, but like you say, this competition, this Westminster competition, because I'd never heard of this, but even opportunities like that are just helping grow the sport, being able to have that. Otherwise, it might not have happened,
I think one of the things we want to do, I'm obviously very passionate about entrepreneurship and encouraging other women and to start businesses, especially with their experiences and filling these gaps. So using the store as an incubator as well for some of these businesses, or if someone's thinking about starting a business, like actually having the tools and the pathway to be able to grow it and bring it to life and then pop it into the ecosystem.
It's been, we've had some incredible support. So MasterCard's been working with us through, again, they were there from the early days when Laura and I, it was like, all right, we're going to put in this application. What do you guys think? And they were like, we're in, didn't hesitate. And I think that's what we're sort of seeing shift in brands and the commercial opportunity, is that having those conversations have been like, well, why women's sport? And instead, it's like, how much and how can we do things differently? And so they're very much centered around, their business is centered around SMEs, and so supporting them. So that's been really great to have them on board and helping in that process.
And how important is it to have big brands backing you? Because funnily enough, I'd seen this on TikTok the other day, how because brands get involved, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the best thing for the sport, but then it means there's money coming in. So is that what helps things, or does it just bring more eyes? Or?
I think it's really a mix, but I think you can quickly identify the brands that are in it for the right reasons. And I think there's a lot of brands that either have been in it for a while and they're very well respected within the women's sports space, but you've also got brands that haven't ever thought about it, but perhaps think now, actually, this is an opportunity for our company, our organisation to reach the kinds of eyeballs that we want to reach. So for us, it's been looking, to be honest, we've been a bit overwhelmed with the response, but it's always been about proving it's commercially viable for women's sport. Yeah. It's not a charity. We're not running a charity here. We know that there is a gap. The Sports Innovation Lab research shows that you need space for women's sport merch. So here we are, we're filling it.
Excellent, excellent. And then in terms of day-to-day, say it's a random Tuesday in July, if I go along, what can I expect there on that day?
Amazing.
On a random Tuesday,
well,
some really big F1 brands popping up, just saying, spoiler alert.
You need your shirt for the next WSL season, so you can go pick it off the shelves and you can go to the Faudi's Heat Press and you can get whichever lettering you'd like on the back. So get that done. Whilst you're waiting, you could take a coffee. Maybe you're feeling a bit sporty, so you've gone upstairs and you thought, I'm going to have a go on this football pitch, but you've never played before. Oh, wait, we can get you onto the pitch and get a coach teaching you. But then you got so excited and you lost track of time and you stayed for a watch party.
There you go.
And then all in bought the rest of the merch and went off onto Regents Street to Oxford Circus, feeling super happy.
I'm in there like swimwear, people. Listen, the launch party's tomorrow. What can we expect from that? What kind of night do you want from that? Is there like a...
Jamie's the party planner.
Oh, I am the party planner amongst, we're all wearing many, many hats in this project. Party planning one of them. But yeah, no, I think we're just really excited to bring it to everyone, show everyone that this dream can become a reality, is a reality. Like I said, we've had tremendous support from the community. That's been, this is our chance to give thanks to everyone who's been on this like crazy wild journey with us. And so it's just about, celebrating. Like, we're here, we're not going away. Women's sports deserves to be on the high street, and we're going to be here for a while.
Honestly, high street women's sport. It's meant to be.
It's wild.
It really
This, when you see this location, it is next level.
Transformation. But this is it. As Jamie said, tomorrow is all about celebrating, but it's also, that's part of why we had SOOO. It's a conversation starter. It's an invitation to then imagine what you want it to be. And this is just the beginning. So lots of tunes, lots of celebrating, lots of conversations that begin for the whole rest of the summer.
Yeah, I think we're really excited to see what comes out of this. Like you said, like inspiring the next group of entrepreneurs and SMEs to say, wow, they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then what those products and services look like that raise women's sports up to the next level.
And I have to say, like, we've now spoken on a couple of occasions, there definitely is such a special environment with women's sport because everybody's encouraging of each other. It's not there yet to really tear people down, and we can often see that in, say men's sports sometimes, not to compare the two, and I'm guilty of doing that sometimes because they're their own entities, but I do love that everybody's been built up, and this opportunity, this store being there for the summer will allow youngsters to walk in and go, on a minute, this is a place where, kind of a lot of people are welcome and there's a space to grow. That's
where
important.
they can see themselves. I think that's been our biggest thing. You'll see with some of like the branding and the imagery and just how the store is laid out is that we want someone to go in there and say, I belong here. I can see myself, right? And so that's for us the biggest thing. If you're a footballer, but maybe you see something in cricket, you're like, how do I get into that, right? So it's just expanding what we're doing beyond sort of everyone's like current remit, which is awesome.
Good. Well, listen, you have sold it to me, and so many others. Like I say, I've seen it going off online, and I cannot wait for the party as well this week and the launch of the event. Well done to MasterCard as well. As you pointed out, Jamie, have always been on board, and I always think of Kim Little and the MasterCard advert as well, and always there from the early days.
So it goes way back.
Yeah, to get involved, but for you two to have this conversation, and now it's here now
It's incredible.
Well, thank you for having us.
No,
I mean,
thank
this
you.
is what it's all about. So, everyone come on down.
Yeah.
We're open doors on the 5th.
We should do this in store.
Yes, let's
could-
chat.
yes.
Let's chat. Listen, pour me a bottle of wine and I'm there. Can I also just say Laura's got an 8-month-old and a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old and...
Not that many,
No, wait.
not that many.
Wait a minute, 5 to
And
8 months.
Yeah. And another business, Ida Sports. So, I mean...
Sorry.
I'm a little
Honestly,
tired.
it's incredible.
Laura's a different breed. She'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
At the opening, Laura Youngson, Jamie, Beever-Jones, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck. Good luck
you.
for
Thank you
SOOO.
so much.
See ya.
Oh, I love that. And thank you so much for joining us on the Kickback today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, get in the comments, and hey, maybe we'll see you later on this week. Bye-bye.